The theater lights dimmed, and a hush swept over the crowd. A barefoot boy, no older than 12, clutched a borrowed guitar as he walked nervously onto the stage. His shirt was worn, his hands trembling. The judges exchanged doubtful glances. How could this fragile child carry a song as legendary as Hotel California? The host whispered to the audience, "Sometimes, talent comes from the most unexpected places." The boy adjusted the microphone. His eyes scanned the crowd, strangers staring, waiting, judging. Then, with a deep breath, he strummed the first chord. It wasn't perfect, but it was raw, drenched in soul. His voice rose, unpolished, cracked in places, but carried a haunting tenderness that silenced the room. People leaned forward, caught in disbelief. The lyrics, sung through his fragile voice, sounded less like performance and more like a cry from the heart. By the second verse, the audience was no longer listening to a boy. They were hearing every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every prayer hidden in his tiny frame. And when he reached the chorus, the unthinkable happened, people began to wipe tears from their eyes. The boy was no longer invisible. He was unforgettable. The boy's voice soared higher, carrying notes that seemed too heavy for someone so young. Yet every word struck deep. The camera caught glimpses of the crowd, mothers clutching children tighter, fathers blinking back tears, judges frozen in awe. He wasn't just singing a song. He was telling his story without saying a word. As he sang, "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave," his eyes shimmered, as though he himself was trapped in a life too heavy for a child. The audience shifted uncomfortably, realizing this wasn't just music, it was pain, transformed into beauty. A woman in the front row whispered, "That's my childhood," in his voice. Another man clenched his fists, whispering, "This is why music matters." The boy's small fingers danced over the guitar strings with surprising precision, though the instrument was chipped and out of tune. Yet somehow, the flaws only deepened the performance. When he paused for a breath, silence pressed on the hall like a weight. Then came the tears. Quiet at first, then spreading across rows like a wave. Strangers wept openly, moved by a truth no judge's scorecard could measure. Halfway through, the boy faltered. His voice cracked, the guitar buzzed with a wrong note. A judge shifted uncomfortably. The boy froze, staring at the strings as though they had betrayed him. For a moment, the hall grew tense. Whispered murmurs floated through the crowd, "He's too young, he can't finish." The boy's chest tightened. He remembered nights when neighbors mocked his singing, when he practiced under flickering streetlights because there was no electricity at home. He remembered his mother's soft voice, "One day, your song will carry us farther than we can ever walk." His hands trembled, but then, something happened. From the back of the hall, a man stood up and clapped slowly. Then another joined. Soon, the entire audience began clapping in rhythm. Not mockery. Not pity. Encouragement. The boy looked up, wide-eyed, as if realizing he wasn't alone anymore. Strength returned to his voice. He strummed again, louder this time. The cracked notes turned to fire, the trembling to courage. The crowd leaned forward, tears replaced with smiles. In that moment, the boy wasn't just singing. He was conquering every doubt, every shadow that had told him he wasn't enough. As he reached the bridge, the boy closed his eyes and let go completely. His voice filled the hall like a storm breaking. What once seemed fragile now carried power, raw, pure, unstoppable. The judges, once doubtful, now leaned forward with tears glistening. One whispered, this is once in a lifetime." The boy hit the high notes with surprising force, as though lifted by the clapping crowd. His guitar, though battered, now sounded like an orchestra in his hands. Every chord echoed years of silent struggle, every lyric a cry for hope. People stood, one by one, unable to stay seated. Some raised their phones to record, others simply placed hands over hearts, unwilling to break the sacred moment. Then, as he reached the final chorus, the boy's voice cracked again, but this time, it didn't matter. The imperfection made it real. Authentic. By the time he sang the last, "Welcome to the Hotel California," the audience was already on their feet. And when the final chord rang out, silence followed, deep, holy silence. Then, an explosion of cheers, tears, and thunderous applause. The boy stood frozen, tears dripping onto his guitar. He couldn't believe what was happening. The hall thundered with claps, whistles, and cries of "Encore! Encore!" One judge slammed their palm on the glowing golden buzzer. The stage lit up in a shower of golden confetti. Gasps echoed as the boy dropped to his knees, overwhelmed. He covered his face, sobbing, not from sadness, but from release. Years of hunger, rejection, and loneliness were breaking apart under the weight of this moment. The judges rushed forward, embracing him. One whispered, "You didn't just sing a song, you healed us tonight." The confetti fell around him like stars. The audience continued cheering, but many were still crying, strangers hugging, parents holding children, as though the boy's song had unlocked something buried deep within them. The boy raised his head, eyes wide, mouth trembling. He whispered into the microphone, "For my mom, this was always for her." The hall erupted again, this time not just in applause, but in love. As the golden confetti settled, the host asked, "Where is your mother tonight?" The boy's eyes lowered. "She couldn't afford the ticket. She's working, cleaning houses." His voice cracked. "But she always told me, one day the world would hear me." The audience grew still. Then, from the back of the hall, a woman in a simple uniform stepped forward, hand over her mouth. Gasps rippled. His mother had been listening from the doorway, too poor to sit inside. The boy dropped his guitar and ran to her. They collided in an embrace so powerful the audience burst into fresh tears. Cameras zoomed in, her face wet, his buried in her shoulder. A judge stepped to the microphone, voice breaking, "Ma'am, you will never pay for a ticket again. From tonight on, you sit in the front row." The audience roared, chanting, "Front row! Front row!" The mother covered her face, overwhelmed. The boy lifted her hand high, as if to say, "This victory is hers." In that moment, the world didn't see poverty. They saw love, resilience, and a bond unshaken by hardship. The stage lights dimmed, but the memory burned forever, kindness, music, and a boy who made the world cry.